Thank you so much for coming today to talk about the red giraffe and her progress in reading and writing this last month. Um, Something that I've especially noticed is that she loves to read. She works hard, she's highly motivated, loves learning. Um, Throughout the assessments that we were doing, she always wanted to write. She frequently was asking me if she could write the things down instead of me doing it. Even though it took her a long time, she didn't mind. Um, she's very positive about literacy, reading and writing, and she considers herself a very strong reader, which I love. I think that's amazing and super good that she's got such a positive attitude about it. Um, she also has a super high focus level, um, which she is good at using and has really helped her with learning English, especially as a second language learner. Um, so overall, the assessments that we've done together, um, I've done about 11 assessments with just the red giraffe, and they've all been related to reading and writing. So usually I would do these assessments in the morning when the rest of the students were working on um, computer websites independently and quietly, so that she could have a better environment to focus, um, because it would be quiet in the classroom. Each assessment typically took as little as 5 minutes, and once or twice we went a little long and had about 30 minutes. But each assessment focused on a different area of reading or writing, um, so that I could get a better idea of exactly what she does well with and where we can specifically help her. Um, so some of these assessments, for example, focused on how accurately and quickly she could read words, while others focused more on the specific sounds and being able to identify them. Um, in addition, we did a few on what she was able to understand from when she was reading or hearing a book or a story, and what she could tell me about that story after we read it. And finally, there were some specifically related to writing, like how deep she could write about, if her writing structure was good with capitals and finger spaces, and the different kinds of languages she used and if things flowed and worked well. So some of her strengths that I found over this month. First, like I mentioned, she's super positive about literacy in general. She enjoys it. She is really good at hearing the sounds and identifying when one sound ends and the next begins. Um, she she's super good at. She's got a great memory as well. So specifically talking with the sounds, she scored a perfect 46 out of 46 on the assessment that I did with her for that, in which I read two sentences to her as she listened, and then I read them again, and while I read them the second time, she wrote down what I was saying. And while not everything was spelled perfectly, you could tell from her writing that she clearly had every sound distinct in what she had written, and that she recognized the sounds in those words and was trying to recreate them the best that she knew with her limited knowledge of English at this point. So that was really good. I was really pleased with that. In addition, one of her other strengths is she's doing really well with phonics, being able to identify and spell correctly beginning sounds, so consonants, as well as those short vowels, the simple sounds. She's got those down super well, and she's really doing well also with her blends, blending a couple letters together. She's really starting to get the hang of the rules about English grammar and those things, and spelling especially. The third thing that I really noticed about her is her memory is incredible, especially when working with comprehension. We were doing a retelling. We read a story that she'd read a few times already, but she read it to me, and then I asked her to tell me what happened in the book, and she nearly quoted the entire thing, dialogue and everything, and that was really impressive to me, that she was able to not only focus to remember those things and the order and everything, but also to remember it and tell it to me right there without looking at the book at all once she started telling me about it. We did another retelling where she had only read the book once, and she got the gist of the main story right away and was also able to remember a lot of those smaller details. So that was really great. A couple things to kind of keep up with those strengths for her with phonics. In school, we want to focus on teaching her more of the specific phonics rules as she moves into the long vowels, and being able to spell those correctly. So I want to really focus on teaching those and then giving her opportunities to practice those, especially during guided reading and independent reading time, making sure that the class as a whole is getting enough of that time to practice the new skills that we're learning. At home, something that I would suggest is to just give her as many opportunities to read as possible. If you don't have access to a lot of books at home, take her to the library, let her pick out a few, and just read them. Even if she's reading the same books multiple times, that's totally okay. Just make sure that one she's interested in, let her pick them, and let her just read as much as possible. As far as identifying sounds, I want to work on helping her sound out words when she's reading, especially when she doesn't know them, and just kind of slowing down a little bit so that she's really focusing on the sounds that she recognizes. Then at home, it would really help if she could just increase the conversation she has. Just make sure that she's keeping up with talking to people, hearing other people talk, so that she can hear those sounds in words and kind of learn to separate them and identify them. And this can be done in English or Spanish. So either language will totally help her identify sounds. And finally, with comprehension, to continue that, she's really got the memory down, but she can work a little bit on interpreting that and summarizing it rather than just telling me the whole book over again. So in school, what I'd like to do with her is when they have independent reading time, I'd like to have her just write down in 1 or 2 sentences the main idea of the book she read at the end of that reading time. And at home, when she gets home, just ask her what she read about. And if she needs a little bit of help knowing where to start with telling you what she read, just ask her about the characters, the plot of the story, and the setting, and those will totally get her started. So those are some things that she's done really, really well at, and there's a couple things we want to work on. One is her vocabulary in English. To increase her vocabulary in English would really help her be able to verbalize her thoughts and summarize books better, what she read, because I've noticed that she struggled a little bit with that knowing how to say what's in her mind. It's all there, but she needs help getting it out, and increasing her vocabulary would really help that. So I would like to work on making sure that I introduce new words to her at the beginning of a story, knowing the book that she's going to read, especially during guided reading or for reading a book as a class, just pointing out those words that I know are new to them and quickly defining them so they have an idea of what's going on there. At home, what we can do with her vocabulary is to just help her be around more English, spoken English. So whether that's you or a family member or a friend, that she's able to hear converse in English, watching TV shows in English, finding a neighbor or a friend her age to play with frequently that speaks English, or even just taking her with you to the grocery store or anywhere you know where there's going to be conversation around English conversation. Just exposing her to the language will really help her develop her vocabulary, and in as many different situations as you can come up with. Another thing that I want to focus on with her is her fluency, being able to read accurately and at a good pace that is a little more conversational. And I'm not looking for perfection here, just kind of helping her get a little stay up on the level she needs to be at. So I did 3 assessments with her they're called running records, that focus on whether or not she's reading the words correctly. And her average score for all 3 of these is about 88% accuracy, which is just we want her to be at least 90%. So she's just under that level where it's best to be teaching her and helping her with those words. So a lot of her errors resulted from just going a little too fast and adding in extra words, or not quite looking at the letters themselves, just kind of guessing without really pausing to see what they were saying, especially since I know she can identify the different sounds and the letter patterns in there. So I know she's capable. She just needs to kind of take a deep breath a little bit. So I'd like to help her with her reading accuracy, mostly just by exposing her to more books in the classroom, making sure that the students have at least 15 minutes of independent reading time every day, and allowing them to whisper read those to themselves, so that they can verbalize, and I want to remind them to imagine they're having a conversation with someone, instead of just talking in a monotone voice. At home, again, help her read. Just give her as many opportunities to read as possible, and encourage her to read out loud, to you, to a sibling, a friend, or even just to herself. When she's reading, remind her to read out loud and to remember that to read conversationally. So yeah, those are my goals with her. She's really done amazing. She's well on her way to becoming a fluent reader and writer in English. She's positive. She's got a great memory and a firm grasp on identifying those sounds. Just again, keep her involved in reading and conversation as much as possible in English at home. And that will help her with her fluency, her vocabulary, her comprehension skills. She's a wonderful, hardworking student. I've loved having her. I love having her in my class, and she's really come a long way already this year in learning English. Incredible progress. And again, thank you for all of the support you've given her to support her learning both inside and outside of the classroom. It helps a ton. I can see it when she's practicing at home. It makes a difference in the classroom. So thank you. And again, I'll keep you posted with the further progress that she makes.